Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we got another video discussion with you. We already did one video, which was for Barbarian. Well, we went to the drive-in, so that means we got to see a second movie. So our second movie is what we're talking about in this video, and that is Smile. So that is another horror film that has come out this year. Looked pretty interesting. So we went and saw it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the movie itself first, like what happened, and then we will go ahead and talk about our opinions about the movie. And for this one, Sarah, what happened in Smile?
All right. So our main character is a therapist at a mental hospital. We find out that she needs to see this new patient, and she goes to talk to this patient. There's a couple other small things that happen in the beginning, but this is kind of where the first chunk of the story starts, right? So she goes to talk to this patient who is basically saying, I'm seeing these people smile at me in a really weird and creepy way. It's not a friendly smile, it's like a haunting smile, if you will. But they're people who aren't really there. Other people can't see them, but I can see them. And sometimes they look like people I know. Sometimes it looks like my grandpa who died when I was a kid. And sometimes it just looks like complete strangers. So obviously, if somebody were to tell you that, you'd think that it's kind of in their head, right? That's why they're at a mental hospital, is because they're not seeing people that are really there. Um, so that's why the therapist is involved, is trying to figure out why she's seeing these things. And one of the last things that this lady saw was somebody saying, "You're going to die today," which is pretty freaky for anybody to find out. You know, nobody wants to know that they're going to die that day. And she something startles her. I think it's because the therapist like went to reach her hand out or something like that. So she saw somebody behind the therapist and freaked out because she saw the person behind her smiling. And so the therapist runs to the phone because the girl is freaking out and like spasming on the floor. And she's trying to call for help. And when she turns around, the girl is smiling at her. The girl is smiling at the therapist, and she's got that like weird, like, like the creepy, haunting smile. And she has this piece of a broken vase, and she basically winds up almost cutting her face off, and then falls to the floor and dies. Right. Well, come to find out, she actually had a police report fairly recent on her that she saw her professor at school do the same thing, not the same style suicide, but that she saw her professor kill himself. So it's kind of like, oh, that's weird. So she's obviously very distraught by this. I mean, she just saw somebody commit suicide in front of her, and it's pretty haunting to have those kinds of visuals in your head. And so she's kind of freaked out, and the her boss winds up making her take a week off paid just to clear her mind and try to come back refocused because she's always working so many extra hours. And we have some instances of her seeing some things at home, whether it's I'm going to mix up a couple of these things in terms of timeline of the movie, but like she sees the alarm go off for the house, insinuating that there's somebody in the home, but there's really nobody in the home. She thinks she hears somebody like around the corner of the house, but there's nobody there. Are there any other instances that you can remember that happened at the house?
There was one part, I think, like right before her husband showed up, where she was like staring off into the darkness of her house and she could see someone standing or sitting there. And then once obviously the husband said, "Hi, I'm home."
Boyfriend.
Oh, boyfriend. Once he had said, "Hi, home," then, she no longer saw this thing. So it was definitely something that was in the back of her mind.
I know there were at least two instances where she got so startled she dropped a glass and shattered it on her floor.
And she became known for that because he was like, "Did you drop another one on the floor?" Later in the movie.
We learn that she has a cat named Mustache that becomes important later. It's a really cute cat. She goes out to dinner with her sister and her boyfriend and her sister's husband, boyfriend, whoever he is. And we find out that she doesn't really have a great relationship with her sister. At some point in the film, we find out that she actually saw her mom commit suicide when she was a little kid. So she's very traumatized by that, but that the sister didn't have to see that. So there's kind of a grudge between the two of them of, I had to see this and you didn't. But the sister's kid is having a birthday party coming up soon. So she, tells her some gift ideas of getting this like train set. And we see her go and buy a train set and package it up all nice. And she's seeing some things and having these visions. So she talks to her own therapist, trying to get on some like antipsychotic medication. Therapist doesn't want to put her on any extra meds. Why don't we, regroup in a week or so and kind of see how things are going, see if you can have just a break from work if that helps you. Well, it doesn't.
I wanted to interject one thing into here too, because there's the meds, and then there's also when she went into work one day, she has seen the one of her former one of the patients she saw earlier in the movie have the smile thing go on, and the guy was like constantly telling her she was gonna die, and she like freaked out. But obviously, like the first girl said to this therapist, like, I'm the only one that can see this stuff. It's the same thing is happening to this woman, because she's seeing this guy saying that she's gonna die, and she freaks out and like tells the staff to like take care of him. Like they rush in and tackle him to the floor. And that's when her boss, which is like the only well-known actor that I remember from this movie, tells her to take a week off paid because she's been working 80-hour weeks constantly.
Right. Yep. Sorry, I'm mixing some things up in terms of what order they happen in the film, but yeah, so she doesn't have a real great interaction with her therapist. Not that they don't get along, but that she doesn't get the medication she was hoping to get. So it feels like kind of hopeless of nothing's going to help with this, right? Well, she goes to the birthday party and the kid goes to open up the gift. And we know that the cat's been missing, her cat mustache. Well, when the kid goes to open up the gift and we're expecting it to be that train set that we saw her put in there, instead it's the dead cat. Like, oh, wait a second. The cat, we didn't see the cat die. She doesn't obviously remember killing the cat. She remembers putting the train set in there. So now this is a really traumatizing event that at the birthday party, a little kid opens up a box and there's a dead cat inside. So that only makes things even worse for her relationship with her sister, and with everybody else. And at that same party, she sees somebody there with that creepy smile, and it's just a stranger. I don't think it's anybody she even recognizes, but nobody else can see this person, and it freaks her out so bad she backs up and falls backward onto a glass coffee table and shatters the glass, and like gets her arms all cut up and stuff. So now she's hurt and she's seeing this stuff, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. We know that she has another friend, that's a cop friend who was kind of trying to be more than just a friend earlier in the movie, but she had a boyfriend. So she was, trying to just blow him off. Like, we're just friends, stop flirting with me kind of a thing. But as the movie progresses, the boyfriend essentially kind of thinks that she's nuts and doesn't want to believe anything that she's saying. So, to the point where he doesn't even really want to be with her, it seems. So she goes to, her friend, the cop, and she's able to trace back that each of these people that had this incident where they committed suicide with, reports of seeing the smiling face, each person that committed suicide had a previous encounter with the police somewhere between 4 and 7 days prior, where they were a witness in somebody else's suicide. So essentially, there's a pattern of you see somebody else commit suicide with that weird smile. 4 to 7 days later, you commit suicide with that weird smile. And then it moves on through whoever sees this, except for one. So she was able to find out one person who didn't commit suicide, but he was part of this train. And instead of committing suicide, he murdered his neighbor, or either his neighbor or some random person. I don't remember which. So she goes and talks to him. And at first, she just says it's somebody that she knows that's part of this train of people that this is happening to. But eventually, he finds out that she's the person. And so he gets really mad because if she were to commit suicide in front of him, he'd be the witness. So it would go back to him. And he doesn't want it to come back to him because, whoever it goes to, essentially they wind up killing themselves, not even by their own choice, but just because of whatever this demon entity is that's controlling these people. So she gets out of there and she kind of comes to the conclusion that what I need to do is, instead of, murdering somebody, because I can't murder somebody, I can't bring myself to do that. What I'm going to do is I'll just commit suicide on my own with no witnesses, because then it can't go to somebody else. So she goes to her childhood home that her sister had been begging her to sell because it's a hunk of junk house in the middle of nowhere and they want to just sell for the land. And she gets these flashbacks of when she was a kid and sees her mom there in the bed asking for help. And so we kind of get the idea that she didn't watch her mom die. She watched her mom OD on whatever she was on, ask for help. The kid refused to help because she was a bad mom. And then the mom died. So she's got this guilt of, the mom died because she chose not to get her any help. But she was also a little kid. So, you don't aren't always thinking in the right mindset as a little kid. So she's trying to deal with all this and try to come to terms with that. And she tries to, the mom basically turns into a creature, like one of those smiling creatures. So she attempts to kill that creature. And for a while, it seems like it's working. Finally, I've cured the curse. But it's not that easy. That's not how it works. So at this point, we're basically at the end of the movie. She tried to kill the mom creature, the smile creature, to see if that would do it. She thought that did it, but it didn't. And the cop boyfriend or cop friend pulls up to the house because he's finally able to figure out where she went to try to hide from the authorities. I forgot to mention the authorities were trying to find her because she was at her work, the mental hospital, with a knife because she was contemplating killing somebody, but she never actually brought herself to go inside to do that. She instead went to the house to try to commit suicide on her own to not have the entity move on to somebody else. So that's why the authorities were looking for her. So the cop friend finally finds her at the house and he's trying to talk to her to, help her or figure out what to do or what's going on. And she doesn't want him to witness that she's, going to commit suicide or anything. So she tries to close the door, but he busts down the door because he doesn't understand that she's, he doesn't want her to commit suicide because he wants to help her. He wants to save her. He still thinks that there's hope, right? And what winds up happening, and I think this is like the last scene that we see, is she pours gasoline on herself and lights a match and just burns in flames in front of him with that smile on her face. So, and I'm pretty sure that's where the movie cuts off, is right when that happens, which basically means there is no end. It's just now he's the next victim of this curse. Did I miss anything?
I don't think you really missed anything. The one thing I want to add is that, so like the first time when she gets to the house and, it looks like she killed her mom and burned the house. The film makes it feel like, oh, this is the end of the movie. We can feel good inside and, everything is a-okay. But come to find out, really, it was just all in her head that everything was okay. Because she leaves the house and everything and starts doing other things, but then she's like running, and uh it cuts back to like her running out of the house again. And so she's like, no, like I thought I was away from this. And then that's what ended up
That's right.
transpiring to the end.
She went to the cop friend's house for just somewhere to stay for the night. I forgot about that. Thinking that everything was okay. And then she saw him smile and realized he wasn't really her friend. It was one of the demon entities. So she tried to bolt out his apartment door. And that's when she realized she was still in that house.
Yeah, it's like the house and the creature thing was like playing games with her brain.
Yes.
Um, I thought that was a very cool twist because like I thought, oh, cool, I guess everything's all right, and then oh, geez, everything's not okay. We're back in this. Um, but that was the only thing that I really wanted to add.
What'd you think of the movie?
I thought it was pretty good. Um, I know if you guys have watched both videos that we put out today, we saw, this one in Barbarian. Um, I would say for this one, as opposed to Barbarian, um, that there was a couple of times where I was kind of like, okay, let's get moving a little bit more, kind of a thing. Like it seemed like they were trying to build up a lot, if that makes sense. Like, so like the early on stuff felt like it took long to get through. Like when she was just seeing things every now and then, I felt like maybe they could have cut one of those to make it move along a little faster. Um, but I thought it was an interesting idea. I thought the twist at the end was pretty good. Just because, like I said, I thought, oh, the movie's over. I'll be able to get out and stretch my legs for a minute and then be ready for the next movie. And then I was like, oh, geez, we are not done. Let's get back into this. Because, she was back at the house. And ultimately, the movie ended with everything not being okay. So I kind of like when movies are willing to do that. Like,
Not a sunshine and rainbows ending?
yeah, it's not always the good guys have won. It's no, really the bad guy won, and I guess it sets up a sequel, but I don't want one. I don't think it needs one. I think it's a good movie on its own, and um, I don't. One other thing I thought was interesting too is there was a part where when you mentioned that she had the knife and her boss came out, saw it, and then that's when the police and that were getting involved. Um, she had thought about what she was going to do, and she had thought that she was going to go into the same room as the guy that she had people tackle when she freaked out the first time, and she was going to wait until like her boss was there and then kill the guy, so then she wouldn't have to kill herself, and then her boss would now have this issue. But when she went to go kill the guy, it was like she was using one of those like fake knives, like that you actually use for movies, where like when you push it, the blade goes into the hilt, because it looked like she wasn't doing anything to him. So it was really like, what is going on? But turns out it was just her imagination. Um, I would say the cat part definitely was a surprise. I didn't anticipate that. So that was cool. And I would say, after all the horror movies that we've seen, if it seems like a really cool twist, it probably is, because we've seen a handful of things. So I think it's a decent enough original type movie to be able to go out and see, or at least stream. Um, there's some movies I would tell you just absolutely stay away from. Like I watched The Munsters recently. I don't like that one, but like this one, at least stream it. It's a pretty good option to go see for the month of October with all the horror stuff. What did you think?
I thought it was okay. I didn't like it as much as Barbarian for the
Same.
main, huh?
I was saying same.
Oh, yeah, for the main reason of it almost was a little predictable. It took her a lot longer to figure out that it was a chain of, one person kills himself and it goes to the witness, and then they kill himself and it goes to the next witness. I feel like we as the audience figured that out way before she did. Um, and in instances where I know something that she doesn't, and it's like a major plot point, not just a secret or some piece of gossip or something, you know, there was, I don't know, a good, let's just say 20 minutes where I'm waiting for her to figure it out. And it's not like oh, she doesn't know this yet. It's just like come on, figure this out already. Like, it just seemed to drag a little bit for
And
me.
there's one thing I want to add to that too. Um, I don't. I think we skipped over this in the recap because this adds to the come on. Like there's a little bit much of the building, and is that she actually seeks out the wife of the
Mhm.
professor dude that killed himself and was asking her questions about this stuff. And the thing is, she learns really what she needs from the cop dude. Like, I feel like you could cut this completely out, that she went and saw um the wife, because basically it was her showing up, asking some questions, the wife gets mildly offended and tells her to get out. So it didn't really add to it except for maybe enhancing her curiosity a little bit. um but like you said, I feel like she could have just had the scene where she talked to the cop and figured everything out instead of, you know, adding that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I forgot about that part actually. But yeah, I'm
Probably
not
because
saying
it
it's
wasn't needed.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. But it's just that was one thing that kind of bothered me, I guess. I hate seeing pets die or animals die in any movie. So I wasn't really a fan of that happened. But it was kind of an interesting twist, I suppose, that we saw her wrap this present. We saw the wrapping paper she used to wrap this present. He opens the gift with that same wrapping paper that we saw her wrap with, and it's not the train set in the box. Like, that was a complete shock for me.
I don't know how to interpret this, but it just popped into my head. It makes me think like maybe what was happening was when she was wrapping, because we didn't actually see what was in the box, but we knew that this train was in like this shoebox looking thing, and we saw her wrap the box. Maybe the idea is that when she was wrapping this gift, she saw the train when it was actually the cat. Like maybe this thing twisted her brain to see this. Us as the audience, like if we would have been able to see what was in that box as she was wrapping it, maybe we would have saw it was the cat at that point. But it almost makes me wonder if that was kind of how that twist was supposed to work, is that only she saw that it was a train, but really it was her dead cat,
It very well could have been, because I mean, how else would the cat get in there?
right?
But I guess my point with bringing that up is that, like, I hate seeing pets and animals die in film. But that was one of the main shocks or twists, I guess you could say. That was like oh, I didn't expect that. Um, on top of the one you already mentioned where she was trying to run out of the apartment and turned out she was back at the house she grew up at, that she like hadn't left the house. So I don't know. It was an okay film. It wasn't super great. It wasn't terrible either. I've definitely seen worse. So if you're one of those people who likes to see films about curses, or if you liked the movie It Follows, I feel like it was kind of along the same lines of that movie. Um, I don't want to give too many spoilers about that movie, but they very similar have they have a lot of the same the main curse and what am I trying to say here, Jeremy?
the premise of the horror that's happening?
Yes. Both of them have a curse that transfers from person to person. It transfers in different ways between the two films. That's not the same, but tracking down the curse from one person to another and trying to figure out how to put an end to it. That, I guess, is how the two are similar. Um,
There's
so,
other things too, but again, we don't need to spoil the movie.
yep. So, anyway,
I would probably say it's an average horror movie.
yeah.
Nothing too crazy that I thought was super original, especially because I think we've made comparisons of this movie to a couple others already. While we're talking, like you said, It Follows. I can't remember already. I forget, but there was another movie I think we mentioned that it felt. Never mind. That was Barbarian. Sorry. But this one, it felt like when we were watching it, there was definitely at times where I was kind of like looking down to see how much time had gone by, like wondering, are we gonna start getting into the juicy stuff? Or are we gonna have more and more building? So um I think if they would have edited a little bit more of the early on stuff out, because clearly you and I were like, we get it. Um, I think the flow would have been a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be a super long movie to be a good one. Chop off a couple minutes from the norm and you'd still be all right with this one. So yeah, with it being average, like I said, at least stream it. It was a decent watch. If you want to see it in theaters, go ahead with a bunch of friends, but I would probably say it's better for streaming. Anything else you want to say about this one?
Nope.
Cool. Well, that was our thoughts on Smile. Again, that is a horror movie that's out in theaters now for this scary time of year with October. Um, it's one of those movies that comes out, and if you're really into scary movies, now's the time to go see them. So, trying to capitalize on that. So, if it's your thing, check it out. If this video was your thing and you liked it, make sure to subscribe and drop us a like on the video. And also, if you've seen it, let us know what you thought about the movie. Did you agree? Did you disagree with what we had to say? Anything, let us know. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.